Today I want to talk about what I thought was going to be the power of coincidence, but having already recorded a video and had fate intervene, so I was unable to publish it. I've had a bit more time to think about what I wanted to talk about and realise that really it's wanting to talk about destiny, of fate, of Wyrd, as it might have been referred to in some of the sagas or the Poetic Edda, and could say it was a fateful intervention that I haven't published the video I've already recorded. When I finished recording that video, I felt a little bit unhappy with it because I was mashing in a few things, sort of including a little bit of an update on my runic journey and then rambling on a bit about the power of coincidence. And once I'd pressed the stop button and sort of went in the process to publish it on my YouTube channel, I don't know, it felt not quite right. So I'm having essentially another go at it, to go through what I want to talk about a little bit more in detail. I mean, I want to start with talking about coincidence and does coincidences, do they happen? Does it exist? And really, I think it's something we make it exist, because it is in our human nature to look for patterns in events that happen around us. I mean, I remember a number of years back watching a program with Darren Brown where he pretty much proved this. It was a fascinating experiment with people locked in a house where sort of lights, was it numbers, sort of beeped as the people in the house did things and tried to make a pattern of it. And the truth of the matter is, the incidents that people tried to make a pattern of only happened when a goldfish in a goldfish pole swam past a marker. So it's one of those things that, as an episode, showed the viewer that we look for coincidences, we look to make patterns. Now, before my progression through this line of thinking is really in talking about the power of nature. And as I've said before, I have this phrase that nature doesn't care about us. Nature just does. It's one of those things that when events happen, it's just the course of nature. I wouldn't even say that it's chaotic in any way. Nature is just nature. Things happen. It follows cycles. Natural events happen. And I don't feel that there's any program behind it. It's just sort of, it occurs. And obviously we can blame things or curse it if we feel so inclined, or feel that we are being attacked in some way. But nature is a force far powerful than us as the human race. But obviously, in the process of talking about fate, as someone who follows the faith of Asatru, I have to acknowledge the Norns and the fact that they weave the fates of humanity. So really, it's taking into account these things. Obviously, it is said the Norns thread the fates of humanity, it does not thread the fate of nature, unless, and I'll say this, unless that's written down somewhere else. But can we understand it? I think that's probably the biggest philosophical question in this process of talking about fate and destiny and coincidence, that can we understand it? Well, probably not, because it happens. Say, even in the Poetic Edda, the gods do they truly understand fate? And if they don't understand it, how can we hope to? From what I've read about Odin's journeys and his predicted fate, it seems very much like he's driven to learn what he can, to become as powerful as he can, to defeat his predicted fate. And I've got the sort of thoughts on that, but there's something that challenges an organic mind to sort of question and defy the idea that our fates are predetermined and that we don't have much control in it. And you have to try and sort of fit that into your understanding. So, I mean, we're talking about Odin challenging that. And what does Odin understand? And I think really that Odin is one of the gods most likely to succeed in challenging destiny and overcoming it. Also, in a couple of my other videos in talking about Frigg, I think perhaps she understands destiny better than most, and is perhaps one of the reasons why she isn't sort of written about making too many statements. When she does, she's quite specific, and is subtle. Countering Odin and Frigg, I think we have to talk about Loki. Now, obviously, Loki can appear very much as a force of chaos. He destroys things. He creates trouble and then creates the solutions for the trouble in the Poetic Edda. And he's seen very much as a force of nature, in that being chaotic and unpredictable. And yet, for me, I look at it and it's just that Loki is quite predictable. In being unpredictable, Loki is predictable. They serve a purpose. They answer to destiny. They have their own fate to play out. It's, again, one of those things that sort of, it doesn't appear in any way that Loki plays the same sort of game that Odin is playing. It seems to be Loki is more intent on undermining Odin's plans, Odin's attempts to not be held to account by fate. But really, I think destiny is, it really is one of those big mysteries to contemplate. We can't control it, and yet we have free will. We choose our path. So what do we do with destiny? Our our purpose. What is our purpose? And I think sort of it's that sort of the phrase of grasping the dragon's tail and holding on, sort of seeking to achieve what we need to achieve, and trying to sort of manifest our control over it with what we've been guided to have as we sort of engage with nature. I mean, ultimately, I think we're destined to ask, to quest, to be tested. And I don't know, this almost seems a direct challenge in a way to sort of talking about the power of contentment, being satisfied with how we live our lives. We all want to be good at something, to have renown, and sometimes it's difficult to struggle with leading just an ordinary life without any fame or fortune. But what sets our standards? We do. We set our standards. And I feel sort of sometimes the hardest destiny to accept is one where we're content. Really, until going back to coincidences, I mean, one of the things in my path is I can acknowledge that maybe coincidences exist, but I think ultimately I'll always challenge something happening and not sort of try to make it fit a pattern, because say human nature is we make things fit into a pattern, and then we can gain some comfort from it. I think we need to do that because the alternatives can be quite frightening. But I think it's one of those things that's always going to be a mystery. And I suppose to take another aspect of Sartre is that sort of really when the time comes, we are the sum of our deeds, and the most important thing to do is to make the best of what is before you with your free will. Yes, we may be predetermined to do some of these things, but it's our free will versus the contact with nature, with the natural world. I think there's a lot to think about, and again, I think it's one of those subjects where we can all talk about it and talk about it at length and still be no further to any truth to it. Certainly if Odin continues to quest against it in his thirst for knowledge and that, and say again, what hope is there in any of us achieving some contentment and satisfaction in understanding our roles? But that's the challenge, isn't it? To aspire and to test ourselves against fate. I mean, it can come out with all sorts of brave sayings, like sort of it's to feel alive is to face death or whatever. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as that. It's just life and how we weave our way through it. It's a lot to think about, and I hope this is sort of intrigued and tickled your thought processes, and you make some comments. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye.